What if Hirohito, the last emperor of Japan, was transported to modern times? He'd probably be pretty stoked to see that the Japanese are making some of the best cars in the world. But then he'd be like, wait a minute, why does everyone have a katana? And they'd all be like, dude, we don't actually use those anymore. And he'd be like, but that's what the samurai did. And they'd all be like, yeah, but that's not really a thing anymore. Then Hirohito would probably want to check out Tokyo, but he'd be overwhelmed by the neon lights and the crowds. And then someone would be like, yo, check out that old guy trying to commit seppuku. And everyone would laugh and be like, that's not how you do it, dude. And then Hirohito would probably get so pissed that he would start to walk away. And then someone would be like, hey, old man, are you enjoying Japan yet? And he'd be like, no, not really. It's too crowded. The food is bland and the people are obsessed with this weird thing called Fortnite. And then he would walk away very slowly and very sadly. If Heath Ledger was alive today, he would be 43 years old. And if you brought him to 2022, here's how I think it would go. You put him in an Uber. He'd freak out because there's no driver. Then you take him out for dinner. He'd order the most expensive bottle of wine and then proceed to get very drunk. Then you show him your phone and he'd probably start crying because he's a very sensitive guy. And then you tell him to calm down and that you're gonna show him something really cool. You take him to an Apple store and he buys a MacBook Pro and an iPhone and then goes home and starts watching YouTube videos on it. And after a few weeks of living in 2022, he'd be like, all right, I'm moving back to the past. But we won't let him because we're gonna make him watch the new Star Wars movie. And then he'll realize that he actually doesn't want to go back. If O.J. Simpson was a time traveler from the 90s, he would be absolutely baffled by our smartphones. He'd probably ask, what the heck is this? And then proceed to smash it on the ground like it's a new phone. Because if there's one thing we know about O.J. is that he's not very good with technology. He also wouldn't believe that the juice man himself could just walk into a grocery store, grab a can of juice and walk out without paying for it. Because back in the day, he was stopped for shoplifting. Times have changed though, and these days, you can just put anything in your mouth and swallow it. No questions asked. In fact, people will pay you to do that. They'll put cameras in your mouth and film a commercial. That's right, people are literally getting paid millions of dollars to have cameras in their mouths, which is kind of ironic considering that OJ was almost broke at the time. If he had a smartphone, he probably would have used it to rob a bank. What if the famous prophet Nostradamus was transported to modern times? Would he be shocked? I think so. Here's what would happen if Nostradamus was dropped into today's world. He would freak out at the amount of technology we have. I mean, just imagine his reaction to a smartphone. Then he'd probably try to use his powers to predict the future, but it wouldn't work because, spoiler alert, his prophecies are not actually real. He'd probably team up with a popular YouTuber and try to make a living off of that for a while. But eventually he'd run out of things to say and get canceled. I don't know. Maybe he'd become a crypto influencer and start talking about the metaverse. Honestly though, I think he would just be really confused by all the billboards and the cars and the planes. I mean, the guy literally predicted the French Revolution. If he could see what we have now, he would be mind blown. Napoleon Dynamite, the French emperor who ruled over France from 1804 to 1814, was recently spotted at a McDonald's in Times Square. An eyewitness says he was absolutely furious about the state of the country. He kept saying, what the hell happened to France? It's just a pile of rubble now. He then went on a rant about how much better his France was, saying, we had the best food, the best wine, the best everything. And now your best is this mediocre burger that tastes like sadness and regret. A local historian was also there, and he tried to explain to Napoleon that France isn't the same anymore. But Napoleon didn't want to hear it. He stormed off, got in an Uber and headed to the beach. The whole time, Napoleon kept complaining about how the water wasn't warm enough. Finally, he took off his clothes, revealing a truly shocking sight, a full bodysuit of armor. The locals were stunned. They'd never seen anything like it before. As the sun began to set, Napoleon walked back into the ocean, leaving behind only one footprint in the sand.